Good morning, everybody. It's finally game day. It feels like it's been forever. This is Morning Cuppa Hockey alongside Colby, Cohen. I'm Jonny, Lazarus, and we are presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet on Betway. Please play responsibly, and remember, you must be 19 years of age or older. We're going to preview Game 3 today. We're going to talk about some other outside news as well in the NHL. We got our I got my brand new Out West hoodie or polo on, excuse me. Very comfortable. We'll get to that a little bit later, but before we do any of that,
I got a package notification actually this morning, so mine will be coming a little bit later today.
All right, good to know. But yes, these new Out West polos are actually insanely comfortable. We'll talk about that though later when we get into our Out West worst team of the week. Colby, what's going on with you this morning? I know we're already in a Twitter battle with Pizza Sports Guy talking about our catch bet, which you haven't owned up to yet. And I've given you so many opportunities.
I'm gonna set the record straight with real news about that right off the top before we get into the show. You like to fight your battles on Twitter because
I'm literally fighting it right now.
Your nickname is Johnny Drama. You're lying to people on this show. You were lying to people on Twitter. The last time we talked about this, I said to you, you tell me what day. You tell me whether you want Catch Steak or Catch New York. And I said, and I will make it happen for you at any time. Whatever.
I want you to come in and go with me, though, honestly.
Okay. That was the last conversation we had about it. We thought you were going to maybe take your mom, do something special with her. You balked on that. You've had other opportunities to do it.
Could have sat next to Lafreniere and the Rangers.
I even told you when the Rangers were going to be in there to have dinner, and I figured you could go fanboy that. You didn't take that up. So now you're going to sit here and spread lies to people. You know, you might as well get a job at CNN or MSNBC if you're going to go on the news and lie to people. So, or Fox for that matter, because that's all anybody does on the news anymore. So don't lie to people, Johnny. You should send Pizza Sports Guy a DM and tell him the real story.
Well, you just said it. So why would I have to?
Well, he may not be here in the show. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's true. Well, he was on Twitter before. He's probably listening at some point. But jokes aside, let's go into Game 3. I was talking to you about it. You know from experience. I think this travel thing is going to be a major effect on the Panthers tonight. Do you not agree? I mean, how could they come out in the first period and have their legs under them? It's going to be a tough first 20 minutes, no?
Yeah, see, you and I are in very different places about this whole travel situation because, you know, first off, they landed, I think what I saw was it was about 3.5 or 4 hours later than they would have liked to have landed. I believe the plan was for them to get in around 5 o'clock, go to the hotel. You know, the equipment staff goes and does their thing for hours. I mean, that's the unsung heroes of your team. And, you know, the player bus, you go check in at their hotel and then guys go to dinner or you know, there's probably a team dinner. It just depends. Every team is a little bit different. You know, we had some team dinners and then we had, you know, nights where guys did things individually, you know, during the playoffs, during the Stanley Cup Finals. But, you know, look, you get in a couple hours late, you know, let's say they got in at 9 p.m. It's not as if the plane, I mean, you get on these planes in the NHL, they're catered with Capital Grille. They're catered with the best sushi restaurant in whatever city you're leaving from. You know, it's like there's unbelievable options to eat. So it's not like these guys would have had a lack of food. There always a steak option. There's always a chicken option. There's always a pasta option. So it's not as if they were starving and they weren't able to eat and this and that. So and Hurricane Central's hitting us with, they got in around 8:45 Eastern. So I just don't think that it's that big of a deal, Johnny. I mean, during the regular season, you know, you play a game sometimes, you get on a plane at 11 or 12 o'clock, you know, probably closer to 11. And then you fly to a city and then you have to get up and play the next day on a home and home situation. But
that's not the Stanley Cup final.
It doesn't matter though. They had a full day off yesterday. They get to spend an extra time in their own bed. And then they get into Edmonton and you know what? You get some rest. They get a skate this morning. I just don't think, look, ultimately, you got to think tonight's game would have favored Edmonton anyway. They're going back on home ice. They lost. They got smacked in the face as hard as they've probably been smacked in the face in the playoffs in game 2. I mean, we've talked ad nauseum about how dominating the Florida Panthers were in that game, but I don't know. Like, I think this is a story for the media. This is a story for the fans. But again, I don't think that this is providing some crazy, advantage to the Edmonton Oilers because Florida came in a little bit, a couple hours later than they would have liked. Again, like, sure, is it nice to be able to just like sit down at 6:30, 7:00 p.m., get your dinner, maybe walk around a little bit? But you're not really doing that much of that anyway during the playoffs, especially in Canada. You can't go anywhere in Canada when you're in the playoffs. It's a mob scene. The fans are unbelievable. Like in Vancouver in the 11 finals, fans knew who I was. The fact that you knew who I was, the very last person on a long depth chart, it shows you how intense and how sort of educated the fans are in Canada. Like they can pick a hockey player out of, a line of 100 people, even if they're the 9th defenseman, that hasn't seen the ice in 4 months. So, I just don't see this as this big issue that I think maybe you're thinking that it might be.
Well, I don't know if it's a big issue. I just think, travel fatigue is a very real thing. And
but they had 2 days between games.
No, but I'm saying the long flight, the plane legs, like I used to always love like getting to whatever destination we were playing at, getting a practice in, and then like having the next day to do the morning skate and everything. I think it would have been more beneficial had Florida gotten to Edmonton and skated there as opposed to skating in Florida and then flying. I mean, that's just how I was as a player. Like I knew my legs were going to be heavy after a flight.
I think there were some limitations with some hotel bookings for the Florida Panthers. I think there was some
comment too.
Big media conference going on. And so I think the JW, which is where the team stayed, next to Rogers. Go ahead. What's the comment that you want to read?
Vic just put it in. It's from Fabs Plays Games. Decent comment. They haven't left the Eastern time zone since March 12th either. So it's been a while since they've been on a different time zone. I mean, it's like, say what you want. It's 2 hours back, but that does like mess with your routine a little bit, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think maybe a little bit, Johnny.
I'm not saying these are so significant, but
you have to remember something. During the regular season, you kind of learn that like you got to be flexible. You're playing home and homes. You're going from, an Eastern time zone into the Central time zone. You're going from, you're going on the West Coast road trip where you're changing 3 zones. Look, there's no doubt that Edmonton has much harder travel during the regular season. I mean, that's, you'd have to be a fool to not recognize that. When you play in the Eastern time zone and the Eastern Conference, your travel's easy. Now, Florida is probably the most difficult of the Eastern travel because they're at the southern tip, of the most southern, NHL team. And anytime they want to come up to New England, anytime they want to come up to, the Northeast, you're talking about 2.5, 3 hours. It's much easier to travel in the Eastern Conference. Western Conference travel, it doesn't matter whether you're Colorado, Dallas, Edmonton, Vancouver, like you're always on the plane for 2.5, 3 hours. You don't have any 45-minute flights, obviously if you're going from Edmonton to Calgary or something like that. But I just don't,
again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm making this some big deal, but I think it should be discussed. Like I do think if you were asking me who the better team I think will be in the first period of the game, I'm gonna say Edmonton. But
let me ask you a question. Yeah. Would you have said that regardless, or you think only because of the travel issue?
I would have said that regardless because I think Edmonton's gonna want to have a better game after game 2 anyway. Obviously, they didn't have much jump in their game to begin with, but with this also, I think you kind of I know it from a college perspective, so it's hard for me to really give it the NHL and pro level perspective, but heavy bus legs, the travel legs, these are real things that
but there's also a lot of technology now, Johnny. You got to remember, every guy's sitting on the plane with a Theragun. I literally have a Theragun right here. I like, it's literally sitting on my desk. I live with that thing. It's like a little personal massage device. Everybody has those. Everybody has those compression. I forget the company that got big for those compression legs. Normatec things.
Yeah.
Now Theragun makes them as well. I mean, Hyper Ice, they all make them. Yeah. The other thing a lot of guys do on planes, they wear skins. There are these super, super tight spandex.
Like the Kim Kardashian company?
As tight as no, they're called not Skims, they're called Skins. Skins.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I could see where you would have thought that's what I said, but that's not what I said.
I thought that was an honest.
It's a sports. No, it's like a sports compression pant. And they have tops as well, and it's for lactic acids in your legs when you travel. When I was in Colorado as a rookie, I got introduced to that. Guys like Ryan O'Reilly and all the older, well, he wasn't an older guy, but all the older guys that were Paul Stasny, the guys that were into like newer tech and stuff like that, were always wearing those on the plane. I did see Mohammed Gilderstein said, Colby, our lox and bagels and National League breakfast. I can just tell you this, the spreads in the NHL, breakfast, lunch, dinner, are the most insane things you've ever seen. They're basically the same everywhere. But I mean, yes, they do have lox and bagels at NHL breakfast, along with 400 other things. And the craziest thing to me always about, whether I was working in Chicago, when I was in Colorado, when I was in Boston, whatever, would be the amount of food that would get wasted. Because they would literally put out a spread at the Ritz or the Four Seasons, wherever you eat. It could probably realistically feed 125 people, and only 25 to maybe 35 people would eat. Some guys would go out on their own. Sure, the trainers would eat, coaches would eat, this and that. But I mean, you're talking pasta, gluten-free pasta, whole wheat pasta, tomato sauce, a light pomodoro sauce, a fettuccine, a white, like a cream. I mean, they would have 7 of every option.
Are you talking like night before the game, plain?
I'm talking they'd have steak, chicken, and fish. I mean, and of the fish, they'd have 2 different types of fish. They'd have fillets and they'd have strips. Like, the spreads were insane, especially in Chicago. They went to like another level with what they would spend on team meals. And as a team employee and a broadcaster, we were, we ate at all those meals. And then even after the game. So, there'd be another one. So, the sort of the inside joke that you hear about when you're a rookie in the NHL or you're just coming in, league. Guys would call it the Never Hungry League, because the amount of insane amounts of food that is provided to you, whether it's the plane, the hotels, the dinners, is crazy. So look, and I agree, Jeremiah, take it to the homeless shelter. The funny thing about that, because I know guys have looked into that, there are crazy, crazy rules about what those shelters will accept. And I do know teams that I've been on have looked into initiatives of making sure that food doesn't get wasted. But the laws and the regulations surrounding all that makes it nearly impossible to do anything but throw that stuff out. So look, Jonny, let's just go back to the top of this story and kind of wrap this up. Is that I think no matter what, Edmonton's level of desperation in this first period would have given them the advantage to come out and basically try to throw the kitchen sink at Florida. I mean, that you're in this point now where I'm finally ready to call this a must-win game. I mean, there's no doubt about the fact that this is a must-win game. If they lose this game, good night. I mean, it's probably good night anyway, but you cannot lose this game, and you've got to be able to build off of a strong first period against a Florida team that's confident, full of swagger, and getting high-end play at every position. So I just think that, and I've seen this in the chat, I think this is a media story, and we're talking about it, so we're guilty, but I do not believe this is a real factor. Whether this is a win or a loss in this game for Florida, the whole travel situation, to me, not a factor.
Well, it's also a media story because the Panthers weren't available to do media yesterday.
Yeah. So, which maybe could have been, I mean, listen, that could be one of the reasons they didn't go to Canada right away. Was just to give their team a little bit of an extra fresh breath of like relaxing. And that includes media and Canadian media.
Yeah, well, the story would have been, Barkov feels good to go if the media had talked, right? Like that kind of be the story if
I mean,
Florida
listen,
was available.
Look how hard it is for us to get someone from the Florida media to come on our show versus every other market. It's very challenging, right? And so think of the difference between Florida practicing in their practice facility or at Rogers Place and the swarm, of media. It's intense. I've seen it because I've seen it in Vancouver as sort of a, I got to sort of look in on that, and obviously nobody wanted to talk to me, but still got to sort of watch that all transpire.
Mm-hmm. And just to keep the conversation going, we're going to stick to game 3, obviously. With Barkov being healthy, it looks like he's going to play. He practiced yesterday, no bubble, nothing. Seems good to go. Is there any sort of response toward Draisaitl, or it's play the game and try to win, beat him on the scoreboard?
I mean, look, I think that anytime you get an opportunity to take a run at Leon Draisaitl, you're doing that anyway, right? Like, look at how ineffective that he's been in this game, in these games. I mean, the best way to hurt, quote unquote, hurt Leon Draisaitl is to keep him off the score sheet. So, am I expecting some crazy retribution? Not really. I'm really not. I mean, it may Matthew Tkachuk go out of his way. May somebody take a little bit of a run at him? Sure, that may happen. But the reality is, I don't think that it's going to be some, crazy, retribution game at the end of the day, right? Like, I think Edmonton, they need to get themselves back into the game, and they need to score 2 goals in a hockey game. That's got to be their focus. And, their coach needs to find a way to get more guys out on the ice, Johnny. I mean, I started digging in a little bit on Instat and looking at just some different, time on ice and time spent together, for players. And when we see the fact that, McDavid has been on the ice against Forsling and Ekblad for, 24 of McDavid's 32 5-on-5 minutes. I mean, that's a massive number. And right now it's advantage Forsling and Ekblad. It is. And the other thing that really stuck out to me was the fact that 97 and 29 have played 54 seconds together 5-on-5, played 54 seconds together 5-on-5 last game. Maybe it's time. Like, maybe it's time for the nuclear option of 5-on-5, those two, because clearly, Draisaitl's not getting it done on that second line. He's not getting a lot of help, but he's drawing, that pair of Montour and, I'm drawing a blank. Montour plays with, and Mikkola a lot. And so maybe you just need to put them together and go fully best on best. And let's just see where the chips fall if you're Knoblauch. But, a lot of questions on home ice tonight. You do get last change, so it does give you that advantage.
I don't know if you want to go so top heavy, though, just because if McDavid and Draisaitl aren't generating and, they are facing Forsling and Ekblad, like, then what are you getting?
But let me ask you a question. How has it worked in game 1 and 2, Johnny? When do you go to it, though? So let me ask you.
On home ice. You have to think on home ice they find a little extra.
When do you go to it? I mean, it's getting late early, right?
Yeah.
You're halfway there if you're the Florida Panthers. So if you're Knoblauch, when are you going to it? And I understand because of the balance of Florida's lineup. Vic, do us a favor and put Florida's lineup up. And obviously we don't know exactly what that's going to look like tonight. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if Barkov is going to go out against the big line and then Draisaitl moves up, you're right. It gives the Bennett line, the Lundell line, it gives them major advantages. As who they're going to be matching up against. But again, I just think that it's getting late early for the Edmonton Oilers. You can't really afford to continue to fall behind the 8 ball. And, you look at the way ice time has been spread out last game. McDavid played 25 minutes, Draisaitl 23 minutes, and Bouchard played 30 minutes. Now, Nurse got hurt and Fogle got tossed, right? So, you got to kind of take that into the equation. But you look at the other side, Forsling only had to play 22 minutes. Montour only had to play 22 minutes. Reinhart was the highest forward who played 20 minutes. Barkov probably would have eclipsed it, but he didn't play the last 9 or 10 minutes. You just see the difference in the economy of scale of the ice time. Like, you're going to have better legs in the third period if you've only played, 18 minutes going, into the third versus McDavid as a forward playing 25 minutes. I mean, that's a lot of minutes.
I think Bouchard had like 9 minutes in the first period alone as well. He finished the game.
And Nurse was
He
out.
finished the game with 30.
Yeah. Which is crazy in a non-overtime game.
Yeah. I mean, 30 minutes of ice time. I mean, again, though, toward the end of the game, they're kind of chasing the game a bit, and there were a couple power plays, but Bouchard playing 30 minutes. I mean, that is a lot, man. That's tough. And yeah, do we know Darnell Nurse's status for tonight?
Well, it sounds like he's going to play. Knobloch made it seem like, he would play. Again, I know he's been under the microscope, but I have heard this from people that, are reliable people that have been around him, that he is a tough individual, right? Like he's not going to miss unless he's, basically has a limb hanging off of his body. So, I do think that, you can look at that. And we've got a comment in the chat, Florida's third line by TJ. Florida's third line has been their biggest advantage. Listen, we said that going into the season. I mean, going into the series, that third line with Luostarinen and Lundell and Tarasenko, like that's where the major drop off happens, because it's not like Edmonton can't put two good lines together like Florida can, especially when you split McDavid and Draisaitl. But when you get to the third line and even the fourth line, that's where the major discrepancies are. Probably can point to the second and the third pairs, on the back end too for Florida, where they get the big advantages. But, as far as the skaters go, I mean, that's where you find a lot of the advantages in this series.
Yeah, but also I think the truth of the matter is Edmonton doesn't stand a chance that their power play is not going to score goals. I think that's where they thrive. It's their bread and butter, and we saw it happen. We saw it happen with the Rangers. Like the Oilers and the Rangers are similar in the fact that like their power play drives them. And there's no denying that when the power plays are that good and that lethal, if they're not going to score the man advantage, they're not going to win the games. They're not. It's not going to happen. And I think that's something that, you can't go into a game like hoping to get a power play. You're probably going to get one or two, but it shouldn't be a strategy to put yourself on the power play. But with that said, like you got to build off of it, right?
Yeah, so and they've had power plays, Johnny. It's not
they had plenty of chances, plenty, and they're not scoring. I mean, Florida's PK, like even my friends who watch hockey in the playoffs that don't watch hockey religiously, and take this comment how you will with that, like they even said when it was 6-on-4, they couldn't tell that it was a 2-man advantage the other night. Florida's just that good and that aggressive.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like Edmonton's maybe overhandling the puck? I mean, to me, they're turning down good.
I thought McDavid lost the puck a lot in game 2.
But I'm not even pointing at McDavid. Let's say once they get in the like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had an unbelievable opportunity to shoot a puck the other day on the power play. Actually, John Goyens did a little breakdown on this in the coaches room on DFO Live. I think I did that show on Monday and Tuesday this week, and I don't remember which day. I think it would have been Monday or whatever the first day. Did I do it Tuesday, Wednesday?
Well, the game was Monday. So
you know what? I did DFO Live on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. Goyens came on Tuesday. So if you want to go back to the Tuesday episode of Daily Faceoff Live and look at the coaches room segment, John Goyens did the power play as the second part of the coaches room segment and showed the amount of times that Edmonton's sort of turning down good looks and action to the net, and they're looking for that next really pretty perfect pass. And because of Florida's discipline and the way that they collapse in their stick position, always good and to the middle.
Nothing gets through the middle.
They're just not getting it. And like Nugent-Hopkins has a play where he's going downhill and he's got a lot of net and he tries to go back across the grain. And it's like, you got to shoot that puck.
Yeah.
And there was a number of plays where guys were getting caught overhandling and overpassing the puck, McDavid included. He gets a little bit more of a free pass because if he's overhandling it, there's a reason probably why he's overhandling it. Like he's just the exception most of the time to the rule. But it's one of the issues I think with the Edmonton power play right now is they're looking for too pretty of a play. It's not going to come against Florida. You got to simplify it and use the shots from the point.
Yeah, just literally get Bouchard in the middle of the ice and let him rip.
Stop turning down opportunities. Everything needs to be towards the net right now against Bobrovsky.
And we talked about it a little bit on Tuesday, but Bobrovsky's also read every single Draisaitl one-timer, right? From that like spot right above the goal line that he loves to score from. every time he had that chance, Bobrovsky was right there, even overplaying it, honestly. But Vic just made a good point too. Do you think Bobrovsky after 2 games is almost in their heads, which kind of leads you to maybe find that perfect angle to shoot? It shouldn't be that way, but
I'll tell you why I don't think so. That's how Edmonton's power play has done it all year. I mean, they make highlight reel, cross box passes, cross seam passes. I mean, you're talking about the best players in the world. I don't think so, but I did see a comment from Jules Winfield in the chat. And we do see all the Laine chat, guys. We're going to get to Laine. Like, we have him. When we're done talking about this game, we're moving into, the Laine conversation. So save some of your comments for us, because we're going to want to read them. We're going to want to talk about them. And obviously, once we start, feel free to re-put them in. But Jules makes a really good point here. And I don't think this is a massive factor, but I do think it's a reasonable comment. She said the ice in Florida, not as good as the ice in Edmonton. Edmonton has unbelievable ice. They really do. I mean, it's not even a knock on the Panthers, because I've actually heard the building in Florida has been pretty cold.
Freezing.
And I think that they've been doing a pretty nice job of getting those compressors running hard and keeping the ice, at a really good temperature. But in Edmonton, you're getting cream of the crop ice, right? Yeah. You're getting the same level like Edmonton, Winnipeg, Calgary, like some of the best sheets to play on in the National Hockey League. Coming out of Edmonton. Chicago's is usually pretty good as well, but that is a good point, right? Like, maybe it's only a 1 or 2% factor, but on a power play, having that, little bit of a cleaner look, a little bit of more spin on the puck, if it's only a 1 or 2% thing, that could potentially be helpful. So I don't think it's a massive factor, Jules, but I do think that's a pretty good pickup and a pretty good thought by you, something that I really hadn't thought about. But having been in all those buildings, I can definitely confirm what you're saying. And it is something to at least mention.
Yeah. And, obviously the better ice would favor the more skilled team, which, no discredit to Florida,
but who's the more skilled team?
It's Edmonton. Come on.
Is it though? I mean,
it is.
It is top to bottom. I mean, I don't know about
maybe
that.
Not individual for individual, but like the skilled players on Edmonton are definitely more skilled than the skilled players on Florida. No?
Say that one more time.
The skilled players on Edmonton are more skilled than the skilled players on Florida.
Two players.
Who's Florida's skill guys?
Well,
Barkov?
I mean, Sasha Barkov is incredible.
But is Tkachuk a skill guy? Is
absolutely
a skill guy?
High, heavy skill. Absolutely, 100%. I think Tkachuk is full of skill. It's heavy.
I think he has skill, but I don't think he's a skill guy.
Oh my god, I couldn't disagree with you more, saying that he's not a skill guy.
I think there's a difference. I think a player having skill doesn't necessarily make them a skill guy.
I mean, how many points? We're talking about Tkachuk, who's had how many points, per season in his career? Like, how many goals, how many assists? A lot. You don't do that without skill, John. I mean,
I'm not saying he doesn't have skill.
I understand on an individual basis in a skills competition, McDavid and Draisaitl are
that's my point.
The cream of the crop.
That's what I'm saying.
But overall, when you really go down the list, I mean, you've got Barkov, who's oozing with skill. You've got Tkachuk, who, in my opinion, oozes with skill.
I said this, but are you saying that those two have more skill than Draisaitl and McDavid? No.
But hold on, that's two players.
So that's what I'm saying. I said the top skill on Edmonton are more skilled.
Where's the drop off? But you're saying they're a more skilled team. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that they're both.
I think they rely on skill more than Florida does.
Yeah, but how's that working out for them?
Not good. But I'm saying on the good ice, it'll be better for them.
I just think that I don't think you're talking about.
I feel like you're agreeing with me, but maybe I'm saying it poorly.
Listen, I'm not disagreeing that McDavid and Draisaitl individually have, a higher level of skill than most just about everybody in the NHL. But like, you look at Florida's roster, Vic, give me the forward chart again for Florida. You're talking about Barkov, who has as much skill. Reinhart, you're going to tell me Verhaeghe is not a highly skilled player? Matthew Tkachuk, wait a sec. Vladimir Tarasenko, Sam Bennett, Again, I said Reinhardt's name. I mean, these are all highly, highly skilled players that also have heavy skill, right? You could put any of those guys in a skills competition. They do well. Lusterinen, Lundell, a lot of freaking skill in those two guys. And then you look at Edmonton. I mean, look, Nugent Hopkins has a shitload of skill. And then we already talked about the other ones. I mean, Hyman, again, I think it's pretty even. I don't agree with you that there's a skill imbalance between these two teams.
My messaging was that, or the point I was trying to make is that Edmonton plays the more skill style than Florida does. So the good ice would most likely favor them because Florida can play their game to their best on any fucking ice surface. So the good ice would favor the Oilers. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that. I think both of these teams can make plays. Both of these teams make plays and make plays.
Oh my God. You're not.
I am listening to you. I don't agree with you.
You just said before how the bad ice could have affected Florida or Edmonton's power play.
We're talking about a power play. Yeah, we're talking about a power play that likes a lot of seam passes.
That's also what I'm saying. You don't think that'll benefit them on the good ice?
And the other thing is all I said was it could make a very, very small difference. Like let's rewind and talk about it. I said maybe a 1%, 2% difference. I actually complimented Florida on how good of a job they've done with their ice from talking to guys. But I then just said Edmonton, it's a different level of the way that their sheet and the way that, they take care of ice and their understanding of it. So again, like I'm not disagreeing with the fact that McDavid and Draisaitl go to a different level, but I honestly, if we were to rate everybody's skill on either team and then we added it all up, I don't think there's a disparity. If anything, I think there might be more skill on Florida's entire roster.
That's not what I fucking said, but let's just move on because we're just trying to talk in circles and it's pissing me off. I literally meant top end, but
so 2 players.
That's what I was saying. Yes, it was
okay. All right,
on the top power play.
The good ice. You didn't say top end, but all right.
I literally said the top end skill is more skilled than Florida's top end skill. That's how the whole thing fucking started.
Okay,
and then you went down the depth chart.
Well, I mean, again, I just want to make sure we're clear with the fact that
just put it into this.
I want to make sure
True World in the chat said ice schmice whatever.
Okay. All right, so then let's move down. Let's stay on the game. I want to stay on the game. But I want to ask you a couple questions about what you would do if you were Edmonton. All right, Vic did a nice job putting together some questions, and I want to ask your opinion. Would you potentially look at splitting up Bouchard and Ekholm to find more equity on the back end because of how the bottom pairs on Edmonton have had a little bit more of a difficult time?
Listen, I don't watch 82 Oilers games in the regular season, so I don't know if they did that at all in the regular season. If I'm Edmonton, I don't know if that's the right move. Like who you putting up with Bouchard? I guess is it Kulak? Like where are you putting these guys?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Broberg has played pretty well, but I don't think you want to have him. I think when you start putting him out there too often against the top guys, I think that's troubling.
I also don't think defense has been the issue that much for Edmonton. Granted, last game they had a hard time breaking out and generating offense, but I don't think they've been. I don't think their D looks lost, right? Like I don't know if that's the issue. If anything, I'm trying to think of what I would do pairing wise, but I don't even know what the right decision would be. I mean, maybe dropping Darnell Nurse back and moving Broberg up. Maybe that's something you could do. Give Broberg just a little bit more.
Well, he has gotten more. I mean, I think it was in game 1.
But especially now with Nurse,
had the most minutes. You know,
with Nurse being hurt in the last game, like maybe just drop him on the third pair and give him a little bit less ice time. But I don't think I'd shake up the D pairs if this is what it's been all year. Again, I don't know what they did in the regular season with their defensive pairings. And if they tried those things, I can tell you firsthand, like when the Rangers moved Trouba back with Gustafsson, that was something they had tried in the regular season, and Miller and Schneider were a good pairing. So I could talk about that. But I just don't know Edmonton's, I guess, what's the term I'm looking for? What they've done, I guess, to shake things up prior.
Well, I mean, look, they've already shaken things up when they took CC out, and they've done some different things. I think, I would agree with the fact that I don't think they've looked lost like in their own zone.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been blown coverage, but I do think they've had a really difficult time breaking the puck out. I don't think.
But that was just in game 2. That wasn't really the case in game 1.
Well, it started in the third period in game 1.
Yeah.
And you're right. So it's been 4 of the 6 periods. You've just seen way too many times where they're going back and forth and they're going east and west. And they're getting stuck. And look, I picked on the Rangers decor when the way Florida forechecked them in the last round. And I said, Florida just beat them back to way too many pucks. And I think that's happening to Edmonton. I don't think they're getting back clean enough on pucks. So I don't think they're breaking out. And then all of a sudden Florida throws the grinders on and gets to that, ground and pound offense that I've been talking about and just makes, life miserable for defensemen. So, I don't think you can split those guys up. I think they're too good of a pair. And I think you need what they bring all over the ice way too much. Kind of, going across the line here. What about Tkachuk? Do you think that, we see him make an impact on this series? Because, I mean, the team's up 2-0 and really him and Reinhart have been, rather quiet so far in the series.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be expected for Tkachuk to have something, pretty big up his sleeve, I'd say, in either this game or the next game. I also wanted to address just one comment in the chat, Colby. Dacky, I believe an Oilers fan said, I would not split them up. I've watched 82 games this year. Kulak is good in the playoffs, but he isn't getting beyond the second pairing. So good to have an Oilers fan's perspective.
And I agree with them. I've never been I've never been that high on Kulak. Frank and I have kind of gone at it about Kulak for a couple of years now. I've just always worried, are you going to win a Stanley Cup with him on your second pair? And to me, the answer has always been no.
Mm-hmm. But with Tkachuk and Reinhart, you have to imagine these guys won't be quiet the entire series, right? Like even Edmonton's guys too. Like I think tonight, we saw it kind of in the Edmonton Dallas series. Like the games in Dallas were a little bit low scoring, a little bit, I don't want to say quieter, but maybe not as much action in those first 2 games. Then the series went to Edmonton and it was, pretty back and just, it felt like a different game. I have a feeling it's going to be similar to that tonight. Like it's just going to feel different than games 1 and 2, even though we already saw a completely lopsided performance in both of those games. I think this is going to be a different feel than both of those games in Florida, just because of, everything that comes with Edmonton's building, the fan base, the energy, the desperation of being down 0-2.
Desperation. I think that's the story tonight.
Yeah.
Can Florida match the desperation? Look,
which they have pretty much all playoff long.
I was just going to say, when haven't they done it? I mean, look, the Rangers tightened up the series and got it to 6. Boston tightened up the series a little bit and got it to 6. So there have been moments where Florida's been a little bit back on their heels, and maybe we'll see that tonight. But a team tells you who they are for the last how many months have we, or how many weeks have we been in playoffs now? About 5 weeks.
I mean, even going back to February, I feel like Florida.
Yeah, they tell you who they are. Listen to them, right? And they we know who they are. So look, I think. What's interesting with Tkachuk is I don't think he needs, I do think Tkachuk does other things.
Impact the game without,
whether he's winning wall battles and playing physically. I think Tkachuk, when he's not finding the back of the net, can be really impactful in all these other areas. So
Vic made a good point as well. They hate Tkachuk in that building from the Battle of Alberta days,
and that'll probably fire him up. So
he thrives off that shit.
I think, he'll make a mark, I think, if he needs to. And I think I saw someone say something like that in the chat. I'm sort of trying to monitor it and keep an eye on
the chat's buzzing right now.
How I want to move us through. The chat is buzzing right now. Clark Kellogg made a great point in the chat, Johnny, which I completely agreed with.
I saw that too. I know.
He heard it and he knows what you said, but it's all right. We don't have to go backwards. We'll keep moving forwards. I do see some people in the chat talking about, if they lose tonight, does Pickard play game 4?
No.
I think, again, Johnny,
unless they get blown out of the building, no.
Friend of the show, came on our show before they went to Florida, which we loved and appreciated, but it's Stuart Skinner's net the rest of the way here, no matter what happens in this series. Because if they lose tonight, they're going back to Skinner for game 4. And if they win tonight, that means Skinner played good enough to get him a win. He hasn't been the problem whatsoever in this series. Again, I'm always a little picky on goaltenders, and I like to see them make one or two they shouldn't. I think that's the difference in this series right now. Otherwise, we'd be talking about 1-1. We saw what Bob did in game one. I mean, this series could be 1-1 if not for Bob. So, goaltending is ultra important. And if the Florida Panthers win, I'm going to make sure to remind people who tell me goaltending doesn't matter and you don't have to pay goaltenders. Yeah, well, ask that to all the teams that lost and don't pay goaltenders. So, look, it's going to be great energy in the building tonight. I can't, look, I was thinking about this the other day because at night when we, most of the time my wife puts my daughter to sleep, but my wife is a great singer. She sung when she was a kid and can sing really well. Still, obviously doesn't do it anymore. But anytime I can hear her putting Sloan to bed, I hear her singing to her. And I'm always like, God, I can't compete with that. So whenever it's my night to put Sloan to bed, I'll sing her the Star Spangled Banner and Oh Canada, because they're both songs that I know all the words to. And so I love when we have these Canadian broadcasts, especially in Edmonton, when they carry the Canadian anthem. I think Oh Canada is a great song, by the way. I like that song.
It's the best.
Obviously, I love ours too. I love ours too. I get the chills, but
I'm just picturing you standing over the crib.
Well, I don't stand over the crib. No, we sit in her chair and I kind of hum it. And I throw, the words a little bit because, I don't know all these kids songs. I don't remember them. I'm relearning them from the video.
Rockabye Baby. You do okay.
Watch it. But in Edmonton, they carry both anthems on TV and the fans, they take the second half of the anthem and they sing it. And I honestly, when I'm sitting at home watching that and the fans in Edmonton are doing the anthem, I the hair on my arms is standing up. It's such a great, visual and audio and, you just kind of feel it, the intensity building underneath that anthem. So I love it.
The comments are fucking hilarious.
Colby's daughter,
hockey game time will put her to sleep.
Colby's daughter is going to go to school and wonder why they don't sing both anthems.
Yeah, that's
listen. We're going to be doing the Pledge of Allegiance in my house once she's old enough because they don't do that in school anymore. So we're going to do that at the breakfast table every day.
Do that in school anymore?
No, they don't do the Pledge of Allegiance in school anymore.
Really?
They stopped doing that. Yeah, we did that. I did that every day. Until I graduated senior year of high school.
Day. Yeah, every day.
They do not do that anymore. So we're going to do it at the breakfast table. My wife thinks I'm insane, which I am. We know that. I get it. But we will be doing that at the breakfast table. So, all right, look, I think that's a good enough preview, Johnny. I don't know if you have anything else you want to say about this game. I think we'll leave our prediction for the games until we get to Betway. Yeah. All right. We'll both make our predictions and we'll make our pick for the game. Let's move into our out west, Johnny.
Yeah, so this week's out west worst team of the week is the Columbus Blue Jackets, and we'll get into that. I know we've talked a lot about hoodies this spring, but summer is back in action. So let's talk polos, the polo I'm wearing right now. Out West has 6 new polos that are now in stock, ready to ship at outwestgolf.com. Out West Performance polos feature our standard JVE blend, which is created to feel similar to dry fit with a softer finish, making them great for physical activity or for date night. That's 6 new polos available in men's and now women's. So get 15% off using our code Cuppa, CUPPA in all caps. OutWestGolf.com. Out West, every game needs an outlaw. And seriously, we talk about these guys all the time. I know we only do the read on Thursdays, but Colby wears his Out West probably twice a week. I'm wearing this new polo today. I got 2 more over there on my bed right now that they sent me yesterday. These are the
I live in the hoodies.
I woke up in a sweat last night and I threw on my Out West hoodie to sleep through the rest of the night.
Well, listen, you get up and it's 60 degrees right now. And especially if you're near water in the summer and at nighttime, it drops down to 60, 65. That hoodie, I live in them. And even the color, even the salmon color, which I was hard on, it's a regular rotation for me because it's such a comfortable piece to wear. And so I can only imagine, the polos. And I know I got into this before, but the construction of these things is unbelievable. I mean, the quality is super high end. You wash it, nothing happens. The logos have a little 3D feel to them. So This is a great brand. I mean, it really is. It kind of, to me, like, it's similar to the brand Grayson, which has gotten pretty big. And I think it's higher quality, honestly. And I think as they expand their product line, I think eventually they'll probably overtake those guys, having similar product and a similar brand. But it's super high end stuff. So Amal is asking in the chat, what size is my hoodie? XL. I would go, I wear an XL in the hoodie, and I'm 6'3", about 210 pounds. But I also like it to be a little bit loose. I'm not looking for the real tight hoodies anymore. So anyways, worst team of the week, Johnny. That's where we're at, right?
Yep. We're talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets because Patrick Laine has requested a trade, and the Blue Jackets have agreed to it and are looking to move him. It seems like it's a mutual thing here.
Yeah. Well, look, I think originally we thought worst team of the week would be the Washington Capitals because they're taking cap friendly from us all.
We've talked about that all week.
But we've hit on that and we've talked about that. And so, this Patrick Laine situation, it's going to create, I think, a problem. I mean, maybe not. I mean, but when you look at the fact that he's only got 2 years left on his deal, which is way better than I thought, right? When I looked it up, he's got an $8.7 million cap hit. He's got a 10-team modified no trade clause. But you think in this situation, he's probably not going to be flexing his modified no trade clause too high. So before we go into this, we want everyone in the chat right now, drop into the chat who you think is the best fit for Laine, but tell us why you think it's the best fit, right? Don't just throw the team in there because, we want to understand your point of view on this and why you think it. And I'm going to throw it over to Jonny and give him first crack at this. I have one team in mind that I think would be probably the most ideal fit. But I want to give the ball over to Jonny first. Maybe he's thinking the same way I am. We'll see. Unless you want me to go first, Jonny, you tell me.
Yeah, I don't know where I see him as like the most ideal fit. Yesterday I tweeted it that I just had a gut feeling it's going to be Carolina.
Which I very much disagree with, by the way.
Yeah, and that's I never said I think that's
you wouldn't
the best
expect
fit.
you wouldn't expect anything different.
No, but I just think like when it comes to player coach relationships too, like Rod Brindamore and obviously Don Waddell and the previous relationship with the team, and maybe they find a way to bring Nate just to Columbus or something like that. Like I was just thinking, externally, I guess, not necessarily where Laine would go into the lineup or where the money would necessarily work. I was kind of just thinking of relationship and fresh start and maybe a good place for him to feel mentally. I feel like a lot of the players love playing Carolina. That's just where my gut went. Again, not saying the lineup or whatever, but I'm curious to see what team you think he fits best.
So I see a lot of people in the chat throwing Chicago in there. I could almost guarantee you that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I know what type of player the general manager is looking for. He's a good friend of mine, and it's not the Patrick Laine type. I think Utah, to me, is probably the best fit for Patrick Laine and probably one of the only teams willing to take on his $8.7 million cap hit. Because here's the thing. Is Columbus a team that is not really admitting that they're in a rebuild? They went out and got Gaudreau. Werenski makes a bunch of money. They got Provorov. They have a bunch of young guys, but it's not as if they burn it down. Like last year, Columbus thought they were going to be a good team. They hired Mike Babcock, not for a rebuild, but to win. So I think they're still in a little bit of a denial situation of what they really need to look at doing. So I don't think they're going to be willing to eat 50% of his money, right? And just sit on $4-point-something million unless the return is just so massively good that you don't mind that. I mean, look, $4 million is not the end of the world to eat, especially if you're not a team that's probably competing for a Stanley Cup, and it's only for 2 years. So maybe, but you look at Utah, they've got more cap space than anyone. They're in a situation now where they need a little bit of razzle dazzle, right? Nobody expects them to be really good. Okay. And you bring in a guy like Laine, who's got, high risk, but also very high reward. And that's how I look at Patrick Laine. If he's feeling good about himself, and he's, in a good place mentally, then he could still score in the NHL, but he's proven to be a little bit of a one-dimensional player. All right. He's had a hard time dealing with the mental stress and the mental aspect of hockey. Look,
I mean, he's also been in Winnipeg and fucking Columbus.
Listen, guys love playing in Columbus, though, Johnny. You ask players who have played in Columbus, players love playing in Columbus. And I think
he wasn't
Columbus
on good teams.
Underrated place to live. Well, look, he played on Torts' team that made it into the playoffs, right? Some of those teams that made it to the first round of the playoffs. It's not like he never had playoff opportunities. So again, I would just say,
did he make the playoffs in Columbus?
I don't know. Vic,
I don't think he did.
Maybe Vic can look that up.
Yeah, I don't think he made the playoffs in Columbus.
Here's the thing. You go into the player assistance program for a mental health situation, and then you come out and you request a trade. Listen, I'm just telling you the optics of it are bad, right? And I'm not questioning him. That's not what I'm doing here. But he only played Winnipeg playoff games. Yeah, okay, so stand corrected. Johnny's right. I'm wrong. -1. But
we're even because of my.
No, I wouldn't say that. You took like a -5 on that that skill argument that we had earlier. But it doesn't look good optically. His run here. He pushed his way out of Winnipeg. He goes to Columbus. He has issues with John Tortorella. It's just. The optics of this guy's career look really bad right now. And I'm not going to question him because you just really can't do that nowadays. And it's none of my business to question him. But I think a lot of teams are probably sitting there looking at him wondering, how much do you really want to play hockey? Do you love playing hockey or do you love the paychecks? Do you love the lifestyle? People are going to ask those questions, whether it's fair or not. It doesn't matter. That's just reality. So I don't think the market for him is going to be very big. I really don't. And I think Utah would probably be one of the only teams willing to eat his entire cap hit. So I think that would be a good fit for him, Johnny. Not a lot of other teams come to mind. I see people saying Colorado. Listen, obviously, you throw him on a line in Colorado with top-end players, you got to think the guy's going to produce, but there's just more to it. How many games are you getting out of him? How much is he costing you? What's the risk versus reward factor? I think a lot of GMs are going to be really scared off by that.
Yeah, I also want to address, I believe Dacky said, as someone from Winnipeg, I take offense to that, but understand it, Johnny, when I said he played in fucking Winnipeg. Granted, I've never been there, but
he comes from Finland. They
get
I know. 3 hours of sunlight a day.
I just didn't mean to offend. I didn't mean to offend anyone by slighting Winnipeg. But what about here's a thought too. What about the Devils? Would that be an interesting spot for him, you think?
It depends. What's their cap situation in New Jersey?
They have $19 million in cap space.
And how many players do they have signed? How many RFAs? You got to dig in a little bit more.
They have 2 RFAs and 4 UFA, 5.
Who are the RFAs though? Are they guys who are going to make some money?
The RFAs are Nolan Foote and Dawson Mercer.
Okay, so Mercer will make a couple bucks.
Mm-hmm.
How many players do they have signed?
Huh?
How many players do they have signed?
They have roster size 15 of 23.
Right, so they've got some work to do.
Yeah.
They've got some work to do to fill out their roster.
God, I'm gonna miss that friendly man.
I really can't see that being a fit for the Devils. I just can't. What element will he bring that they don't they have guys who can score.
Yeah, but they've had this kid Alexander Holtz who hasn't really worked out. He's been supposed to be a top 6 prospect that hasn't. I guess now they have Sheldon Keefe on the bench, but Alexander Holtz was playing 4th line minutes, wasn't really making his way to the top line. Timo Meier kind of had a rough year, then turned it on in the end. The second half of the year he was good, but you can maybe throw a line out there. I want to say Hischier, Laine, and Bratt maybe.
Yeah, but don't listen. I think the Devils are a goaltender away from being a good team, not a Patrick Laine. And I can't see Fitzy, whose leash is getting a little bit shorter. The general manager, Tom Fitzgerald in Jersey, his leash is starting to get shorter. He's on another coach. He still hasn't brought a goaltender in. I think they need to use whatever cap space that they don't need committed to filling out their roster with, the bottom of their lineup. I think that goes to a goaltender. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What are you smirking at?
No, Tommy T, and he's right. Like I'm just thinking of fits for Laine, but I'm completely wrong for saying the Devils. Tommy T just said if Jonny were the Devils GM, he'd get fired if he signed Laine and not a goaltender or a top four defenseman first.
Well,
I completely agree.
Michael Molasses says San Jose, his 2 years remaining gives San Jose the perfect prove it window. You add a 26-year-old sniper. Listen, maybe that.
Yeah, that's what Laine wants, right?
In one breath, I can see that, but Michael, let me ask you this question: is Patrick Laine a guy that you want making $8 million on your team and sort of, I don't know if mentoring is the right word, because I don't know what kind of guy that Laine really is. I've never met him. I've never talked to him or anything. Is that the guy you want Celebrini and you want Will Smith sort of looking at, going, oh, this is what an $8 million player looks like in the NHL? I just don't know if that's really the right guy to put with those two, based on, let's just call it what it is. The issues that he's had in his career with coaches, with mental health, with, injuries. I mean, I don't know. I don't disagree with you that, like, from a cap roster perspective, it could work, but I just don't know if that's who you want to surround Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith with in their rookie seasons in the NHL. Jonny, what do you say about that?
No, I completely agree. Plus, I feel like if you're taking on Patrick Laine right now, I feel like, and not that this has to do or has control in any trade or whatever, but like, if you're taking Laine, you want to make sure it's a place he wants to be, right? Like, the last thing, like, let's say he goes to San Jose and hates it. Like, it's not necessarily a desirable place.
Yeah, but he wanted to be in Columbus.
No, but
remember how excited he was when he got traded from Winnipeg to Columbus?
Yes.
I mean, it does seem like there is a little bit of a common denominator here, and maybe it's not the cities and the teams that he plays for.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough, but trying to think of any other teams, even like maybe Anaheim could be interesting.
No, because I know Pat Verbeek, and I no, zero chance. Like, it's zero. Look, he wants to move on from Trevor Zegras because his personality doesn't fit the mold of what he's trying to do. And you think he's going to bring in a Patrick Laine? Like, I'm not.
Well, two different personalities.
Well, but still, you're talking about guys that have baggage, right? I mean, they both have baggage for whatever, and whether Zegras isn't fair, because a lot of it has been the NHL kind of promoting him probably a little too soon. But I definitely don't see a fit with Pat Verbeek as a GM when I'm looking at the moves that he's made and the types of players that he's going after.
Yeah, fair.
I think, Charles Ferris threw Nashville in there. Look, you look at the culture that's being built in Nashville with Trotz and Brunette. Maybe without looking at their cap situation and their lineups, which I didn't do that with Nashville before the show. So but just from a culture standpoint, yeah, maybe that's a strong enough culture with Yossi and some of those other guys. Like, that's the thing. He needs to go to a place that has a really strong culture. Like, I saw someone say Boston. Listen, I like Boston has a really, really good culture with Marchand and with McAvoy and guys like that. Like, you need to find a place with really good culture to put him into, with really good leadership. The problem is most of those teams don't have $8 million to spare on a guy who you have no idea what you're getting. What, Jonny?
There's a funny comment from the account Capo Caco, but it's spelled, like a penis.
Yeah, we get it.
But the comment is, trade him to the Rangers so he can score 40 in the regular season and go for a walk in the park during the conference final. That was pretty funny. But yeah, the Laine talk, I'm curious to see where he ends up. I feel like it could even like be a random spot, like even, like a Seattle, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, but you got to think about the trading partner as well, right? Like, what does Columbus need in return for Laine? Do you get a big return or no? Like,
I don't think there.
Yeah, we got to think about Columbus here, maybe even more than Laine.
Listen, I disagree with that. You've got a new general manager who didn't write the contract. You've got a new general manager who didn't trade for him, right? So nobody's going to point fingers at you for something
No.
you did that failed.
I'm
No,
not
hold
saying
on.
I'm not saying that.
Let me just flush it out
Yeah.
here. If you're Columbus, you have one of the most talented young prospect pools in the NHL. You've got draft picks. Okay. You've got a new GM, probably a new coach soon. I think you move Laine out and you do okay on the return and you clear 8.7 million off your cap for the next 2 years. To me, all you need is a decent return. You don't need a grand slam return for Patrik Laine, because here's the thing. He's not doing anything for your hockey team right now, and he hasn't in a while. So having him on the team is not that helpful, right? Like, based on what we've seen. So I would part with you a little bit there on that comment, Jonny, because I don't think it's as complicated for Columbus as it will be for other teams.
No, it's going to be a fun conversation, at least to have, right? Like, we're kind of getting into that off-season time where, these projected trades and free agency conversations are starting to happen, and the draft. So, like, once the Cup final is concluded, which we're hoping it's not anytime soon, we are hoping for the Oilers to drag the series out as long as possible, because we want to keep watching hockey. We want to keep talking hockey. And the offseason, when it comes, it's fun, but it can get old pretty quick. So we're hoping that the Oilers can find a way to do this and keep it going. We do have a guest coming on here shortly.
Well, hold on. Yeah, shortly. We got a couple of other things we need to get through. Really quick. We've had a great audience today, great chat today. If you like this episode, do us a favor, throw a like on the episode. If you're not a subscriber to the Daily Faceoff, subscribe to the Daily Faceoff. The content we've got going all day on the DFO YouTube page. We've got a lot of coverage to the Stanley Cup final. We've got a lot of coverage on the draft. We've got a lot of coverage for free agency. We're going to have a massive show planned for that. So throw a like, throw us a subscribe. You guys have been awesome with that. I know we ask you to do it every day, and a lot of you are here every day. So we just got to keep reminding you, keep hitting that like button. It's awesome for us. It helps our show grow immensely, and you guys have been really, really great about that the last couple of weeks. So look, we're grateful of that. We're grateful for the growth. We're grateful for the chat, the comments. This show is going to end up going probably an extra 15 or 20 minutes longer because we've been, moving our way through the chat and addressing your guys' comments.
20 minutes talking about the skill versus the good ice.
The other thing I will say is, just to wrap the Laine stuff, I don't think anybody thinks he's a waste of space. I just think this is a guy who has a lot to prove at this point, based on, how his career has gone and the skill levels that he has. So, we'll see what happens here over the next couple of weeks with him. Maybe it'll happen, in and around the draft. It's usually when you see these types of things happening. The other guy we wanted to talk about today that I think we'll just punt on is Nikolai Ehlers.
Yeah.
We talked about it on DFO Live yesterday. If you want to
catch up on pasta guy.
What'd you say?
He's a catch up on pasta guy.
Yeah, well, that probably is why he can never crack a top 6 anywhere in the NHL. But we'll save the Nikolai Ehlers conversation for a later date as we move in here to our Betway bet of the day. We have been working with Betway as our presenting sponsor here for a while now. They've been offering this great promotion of a free $200 bet. Scan the QR code on your screen, create your account using it. It'll load up your account. You make your first bet. You can bet as little or as much as you want. You'll get reimbursed up to $200 on your first bet and one bet only. Still games going tonight, obviously, or game tonight you can throw it in on. We're looking at the first period for the Edmonton Oilers to win the first period at plus 160. And, based on the preview that we did, we said if Edmonton doesn't win the first period tonight, this series could be over. I mean, that's where they're at. I mean, this is Johnny drama, do or die, must win hockey. I'm finally there.
Florida Panther plain leg hockey.
The Florida Panthers are too good. And if you don't take away their life and you don't, show them they're in for a long night in the first period, I'm concerned what, broomsticks that we might be seeing here over the next couple of days. So we're taking the Edmonton Oilers to win the first period on the money line, plus 160. Pretty good value on that. And we'll see how that goes, Johnny.
Yeah, that was the pick I suggested. So if it doesn't hit, it's on me. I'll own this one. I know Colby comes on here and says every day that I'm a degenerate gambler and I lose all the time, but I'm actually doing quite well right now. So
You were
hopefully,
telling us earlier how you've been pounding baseball bets and you've been
yeah,
hitting every day, right?
yeah. So my good friend, I won't share the name, who watches a lot of baseball, suggested that I
Johnny's gonna get someone suspended from the MLB here.
no,
So
no,
look
no, no, no,
out.
no one who works in the MLB. They just I don't know if they want to just be. No one's name wants to be on a show. I guess if it's not
Go ahead, Johnny. Tell us the
there.
story.
No, so like literally 3 days ago, my friend told me every day just bet against whoever the Chicago White Sox are playing, just bet against them. Whoever the Yankees are playing, take the Yankees. Whoever the Orioles are playing, take the Orioles. And literally 3 days in a row, all three things have hit each time. So like I'm 9-0 in those bets over the last 3 days. Fading the White Sox, taking the Orioles, taking the Yankees. Not that I'm handing out picks here, but yes, I've been on a good streak as far as gambling goes. But
Okay.
that's not hockey related. So we'll see how this one goes with the first period Oilers money line bet. Any final thoughts on this game before we wrap it up and kick it into our next segment on today's show?
Yeah, we do have a unique guest that we've had before
Recurring
coming
guest.
up. He is recurring at this point. It's a little unique, not exactly a hockey player or person in the media, but one of our sponsors who has been riding with us all playoffs, Johnny.
Yep. So we're going to bring on Anthony Berriola. And before we do, or while we do, we're going to say this is presented by Parasso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care. Made in Italy since 1948. Parasso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at parasso-usa.com with our promo code hockey15 in all caps, hockey15. And we've kept Anthony waiting for about 6 minutes and he said he's going to puke. So hopefully you're feeling okay. What's going on? How you doing? You look fantastic as you did last time as well. Same exact fit.
I just shaved. So, well, I mean, this is my everyday attire here. I sleep in this thing.
I don't know if you caught wind of it too. I actually sent it over to Ian and Alec like 2 weeks. Oh, the ketchup on pasta is why you're gonna puke.
Oh yeah. I mean, I hope none of you guys do that. I'll leave the show.
Johnny does that. We've already established
that
on the show. It's disgusting.
It's actually in my Hinge prompts too that I do that, and I have a lot of girls who reply like, "Go to jail."
Yeah, no dates from that one.
But Anthony, we actually have had some listeners, or I think it was 1 or 2, that have sent us a picture of Parasso when they're actually like in Italy on vacation, which was pretty cool. So it's cool to see that like our listeners are recognizing it, embracing it, and whatnot. But back to hockey. What have you made so far of the Stanley Cup Final? Are you rooting for Edmonton, rooting for Florida? I know the Panthers beat up on your Bruins, so maybe you have a little bit of hate toward them.
I'm rooting for the Celtics.
Okay.
I'm on an emotional vacation right now from the Bruins.
Let's ask you the more important question.
Yeah,
all right. We've got a couple of guys here that we're going to show you that are still playing in the playoffs, and we need you to do a little bit of beard grading here. All right. We're going to give you 3 options. You've got Adam Henrique from the Edmonton Oilers. That would be option 1. All right. Option 2, Connor McDavid, Edmonton Oilers, a little bit of red in that beard, and then we'll go option 3 is actually a twofer. We got a great picture of the chokehold of Aaron Ekblad and Evan Bouchard. So you got to tell us, which of these guys needs the Parasso products the most of these guys with these big burly beards?
I'm going right away. I'm going number 1. You see how thick and dark that beard is? I need a machete to shave that thing off. It's great. Yeah, that one I think would benefit absolutely. Look how thick that is. There's not a gap in that beard there. Johnny, how many gaps you have in the beard?
Well, I did shave mine off when the Rangers lost. It was actually coming in quite nicely. I got a lot of comments and compliments on it, but yeah, I don't know. It was just time. I'm at a good length right
one more question quickly here, because look, not everybody grows a beard. You shave, Anthony, right? And a lot of our listeners probably shave. What kind of products from Parasso can people dive into that maybe aren't necessarily beard maintenance products, but for people who do like to have, clean shaven faces?
I say the original 3 from Parasso are incredible. They have a pre-shave cream, they have a shave cream, and then the aftershave balm. But if you have to choose one in any one of them, that pre-shave cream, it's the first pre-shave cream that ever came onto the market. And the stuff is, they used to call it the miracle cream for a reason. No matter what shaving cream or aftercare you're using, this stuff is going to immediately give you a better shave if you layer it on before your lather. And shave your face. You don't wipe it off, don't rinse it off, layer that on, put your lather on, and then shave. I guarantee the shave is already going to be better no matter what you're using after it. But don't use anything else. Go to use the whole trilogy.
To me, I mean, I use the oil like almost every day. I loved the beard oil. I thought that was the best thing for me, and it made it kind of like shiny too.
What was your favorite scent on the beard oil? Which one were you using? Do you remember?
It's in my bathroom. I'd have to go check, but
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you did put me on the spot there, but no, I don't know what scent it was. But that was like my routine right after the shower. Throw little drops in my palm, rub it in, put it all over. Is there any legendary beard in playoff history that would stand out to you? Who's a guy that comes to mind?
A legendary beard. Listen. Why am I drawing a blank here on? He had an appearance on the show Vikings because his beard was just like down to here. Burns' beard.
Burns?
Oh my
Really?
God! Did you ever see that beard that he had?
I mean, he has that all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
That's like normal for him. He doesn't shave all season. He looks like a Viking year round.
Doesn't that make it better, right? It's not. It's like his thing. It's not just a novelty during the playoffs.
Shara had a pretty good beard in 2011, Anthony. His was about as big and as good and as scary. I feel like you could have dropped Big Z into like a Game of Thrones. The guys who at Winterfell, I forget, the Night's Watch. You could have dropped Zdeno into that right there, and he would have looked great. And actually, shout out to House of Dragon. I'm pretty sure that comes back tonight. So that's actually awesome. I love Game of Thrones, and we loved House of Dragon too. So we're looking forward to that series. But definitely some guys who are doing it big with the beards in the NHL. Anybody with the Celtics growing a good playoff beard right now, since you're such a Boston sports fan?
I mean, I would say Derek White has a pretty good beard going.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad he shaved his head. I mean, as a bald guy, I used to watch those games when he'd wear the headband. I used to be like, "Come on, Derek, just come into my lane, just shave the head." But the bald head, the beard, I think he's rocking it.
We got a good comment in the chat. Matthias Ekholm, Viking status. He's a defenseman for the Edmonton Oilers. His is pretty good. I mean, he keeps strong. A good beard year round. So I think his is used to it. But some of these guys, man, the year in 2011, my beard, 90% of it was on my neck. I was only 21 at the time, though. Facial hair was still pretty new for me when I was 21 years old. I mean, even now, it doesn't. It's not my thing at all, Anthony. It's probably never going to be my thing, but that's all right. I think it keeps me looking nice and young.
That's right. We say age gracefully through a beard, right? Have a big beard when you're younger, or at least try to, and then shave it off as we get older. Makes us look younger. You just stay young all year round.
Well, not all guys can pull it off. I don't think Colby's one of them that can pull it off.
Look, before we let you go, Ant, why don't you just tell us where people can find you, and what kind of stuff you're doing at your studio and your shop, and tell them where to find you, maybe if there's a website or whatever. And this way, when people are in Boston and Massachusetts, they whether they're traveling or they live there, they can come find you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I am at Razor's Barbershop in Somerville. We have another location in Cambridge. My brother Joey, he's over there running that show. My co-owner, big hockey fan over there if you want to talk hockey as well. And razorsbarbershop.com. Come on in. Jonny, I'd love to have you in. Shave that beard off if you want to get it clean. Maybe I have to come out to you or something like that. But
I want the private treatment.
Oh, absolutely. Exclusive. Exclusive.
All right. Look, we'll hope that you can get a win for your Celtics. It's looking pretty good for those guys right now. My favorite person in sports to see lose is Kyrie Irving. I enjoy nothing more than watching Kyrie Irving lose in sports. And I generally don't have those feelings towards athletes, but I make an exception for him. So it's great to see the Celtics up 3-0 in that series. I think you're going to have another parade to go around the Boston Common soon. And thanks for joining us,
Colby, one quick thing before we go. Jeremiah, a loyal listener of ours, is begging for his beard to be graded. So I think we have a picture of Jeremiah.
Oh, look at that.
Just want to get a little comment on this one.
Jeremiah, 12 out of 10. 12 out of 10.
Jeremiah's on here every day.
I'll send you some Perasso stuff for that.
I've seen Jeremiah in person. We hung out at the Frozen Four in Minnesota. That thing is even better in person when you get the whole thing. I mean, that is artwork for a beard, no doubt, Jeremiah. You've got a Stanley Cup level. You've got like a 2 or 3, like a 3-peat Stanley Cup level beard, my man.
Fact. Absolutely. You could wash the beard in the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, man, thanks for rolling with us. Thanks for coming on again. Proraso has been a great sponsor and a great supporter of our show. They make great products. Like you mentioned, if you're not a beard guy, the pre-oil and cream is great. The razors are great. It's super high-end, super quality. It's a company that started in Italy. They take care of their stuff over there. You have yourself a good weekend. Good luck with the Celts. We'll be watching hockey tonight. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You guys honestly kept our show probably an extra 15 or 20 minutes. We were worried coming in today that we wouldn't have enough content to get through an hour, but obviously not the case because you guys were so great. If you're on your way out, give us a like on your way out. That helps so much. It really does. And if you really want to do something fun, go back to the beginning of the show and listen to how Jonny talked himself in circles. I had to dunk on him on our argument. He was totally wrong. He shifted. He changed his position. And then he got angry at me. So if you want to go back and listen to that in the beginning of the show, then send Jonny a message and just tell him how wrong he was.
Leave me the fuck alone.
You've got all weekend to do it. We will see you guys back here Monday. Maybe there will be a Stanley Cup champion at that point. Hopefully this series gets extended and we're talking about hockey into next week. Obviously, if you're a Panthers fan, you're not hoping that. I think if you're an Edmonton fan, you are. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the nice weather on the East Coast. If you live on the East Coast, hopefully wherever you are, you do have nice weather. Good work producing today, Vic. A little bit light on your part, but that's all right. It's almost the weekend. Jonny, you brought a little bit of energy today. You're a little bit better than you were yesterday, so good job, pal. Everybody have yourselves a nice weekend.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.